Hello, welcome back to Lumps of Life. My name is Jared Lumsden. Joining me today is body mod pioneer, sideshow performer, the Lizardman. Welcome, sir.
Oh, I love hearing my own press releases read back.
Yeah, I always love doing that. I did much better. The last one I did, I butchered the hell out of. So, but it's always that like awkward, like how the hell do I start this? I love doing like just what we were doing a minute ago before we started, where it just instantly the conversation. I need to just start hitting the button instantly and then just going
It's
back and either take whatever because it like you. I want that natural
it's
flow
a
of a
good
conversation.
it's a good rule. Just start recording and then edit.
Yep, because I always feel like it almost makes it a pain in the ass, and it's like the only thing that I get in my head about where I'm like, okay, how do I go about like starting this? And then I went back and forth, so it's interesting. I love that it instantly made you laugh because I was like, oh, I hate doing these. But we had already kind of got into a conversation just about life, and we were going right into what I wanted to start this with anyway was just the like different ways pain kind of flows into life, and it was
Right.
almost kind of teetering right into that. And obviously with what you've done with your body, with your performances, there is a common denominator with a lot of pain. And for me, that was one of the reasons that I reached out to you, was reading out what you were doing and why you were doing it. For my journey, every single time that I've put myself through any sort of pain, and for me, obviously, very, very different than the pain that you're putting yourself through,
Right.
but it always opened up a new pathway in my brain. It always opened up some different level of something,
Well,
something that I was
there's
scared of, whatever,
right.
and that you've made kind of your whole existence about that.
In some way, I mean, for me, like pain is it's an unfortunately necessary part of most of the processes of what I do. I'm not seeking it out, but I'm also not avoiding it.
Mhm.
I'm ignoring it as part of the equation. I'm like, oh well, if that's part of the deal, that's part of the deal. That's what it is. I'm not going to let it influence me one way or the other. But to sort of get to that point that you're talking about a little bit about learning stuff from it, there's a very old saying, and I'm sure it exists in multiple cultures and whatever. It's so old that we don't, not that I'm aware, do we have a good attribution for it? But it's just that pain is informative, right? And you hear,
Mhm.
and like I said, you hear this in many different cultures, in many different sayings, many different ways. It's like, look, when you are in pain, you are in pain, whether it's physical pain, emotional pain, but all of these experiences of pain give us information about ourselves, in
Yep.
that context, whether it's, oh, this is a pain that I can't take. This is a pain I want to avoid. This is a pain that is necessary. You can see past it. Like I said, it just, I feel like just the broad way of saying it is pain is informative.
Mhm.
And one of the ways that that's played out a lot that I've personally seen is with the in body modification, there's actually suspension, people doing
Okay.
fresh up suspensions. And a good friend of mine, Alan Faulkner, is considered kind of the grandfather of modern suspension. And I met him early, like back in '98, I think. That's when I first got involved in doing hooks and things
Mhm.
like that. And, he said from the very early on, because at that point when I met him, he had just started helping other people go through and do suspensions. And now he's facilitated thousands. But for years and years, he said, almost everyone shows up with something they want to get out of the experience. Like just like bungee jumping or anything else, or skydiving, people walk in, they're like, this is what I want to get. This is what they've got, this idea in their head. Right. And he goes,
Yeah,
you very rarely get that, but you almost always get something you needed. So that's what he says. Like
absolutely.
when you put the hooks in and you take that pain, you might be thinking, oh, I'm going to get there. And I'm going to have fun. The adrenaline's going to rush. Whatever. But sometimes you get up there and you're just like, oh my God, my first dog dying, or what,
Oh,
some
that's so
catastrophic,
interesting.
like
So
it's almost like I say, and I say this from my personal experience. It's not like I've never hallucinated or tripped from being on hooks, but I've ended up in similar places with psychedelics where, yeah, and this is why I will tell people who are thinking about doing it, you want to go in very positive and clear headed. Just like, don't take acid when you're sad, right? Whatever you bring in gets
yep,
amplified, right? So it's like,
yep.
look, if you are depressed and going through a horrible time, you're like, I want to do a suspension. It's going to be my starting point. It's going to start over. I'm like, it probably won't be that. It can still be something very positive for you and give you what you need, but you can't fix the outcome before you go into it. Just like you
Yeah.
never know when you take those tabs, you don't know if it's going to be this trip or that trip. And if you try to force one of them, it's going to just go bad. So that's why I often say, like, especially if you're going into traumatic, painful things, physical pain, like, be open to the experience. Just let the feeling hit you, feel it, let it move through you, and then let it do what it's going to do in your head. But yeah, what you bring into it is big, but what it's going to tell you is it might tell you something you needed to think about without you realizing it. That's that informative aspect.
So for people who don't know what suspension is, I literally just learned about it not too long ago when I was reading about the stuff that you've done. Can you kind of walk through what that experience
I
is
mean,
like?
it's when I say flesh hook suspension, it is literally that literal and simple. It is putting hooks through your skin and then suspending your body in the air via them. It could be, as is common now, from from 2 to 4 hooks in your back. It can be from hooks in your arms. I got a friend who likes to put hooks through his face. And I mean, he usually needs a little more support from like an arm or a couple other points, but he's getting his skin stretched out like that.
Wow.
And in his case too, it's the physics. A lot of people are there for the physical intensity, but also for a significant number of people, the intensity is not the physical aspect. It's like afterwards, like I've myself done suspensions and seen other people get suspended, and afterwards say very clearly, yeah, the putting hooks through my skin and hanging from them was the least intense part of that experience. Yeah, it's the trigger, right? If I hadn't had hooks put in my skin and been yanked up in the air and started thrashing around on them like that, I wouldn't have induced the biochemical state in my body and brain that produced the experience I had. But that experience is way more intense than just the owie, he put a hook in my skin.
Yeah. Well, because that would be for me, that'd be the initial portion, is just like the thought of having myself put up, like, I guess, like a fishing lure is what I was picturing in my head as you were talking about it. So like the thought of having myself.
We use shark hooks for a long time.
Okay.
We buy mustad shark hooks, debarb them, polish them up properly, and then use them as the hooks to hang from. That's old school suspension.
That's so how long has that been around? Because that's a wild thing to like come across for the first time.
Human beings have been suspending by their flesh for longer than we have written history of it. Wow. That's an ancient practice from around the world. You'll find it predominantly in Southeast Asian and Native American cultures, but it exists at different times in different areas around the world. And what you see today with people like myself and what my friend Alan has done with groups like Traumatic Stress Discipline, and there's other groups like Steve Joyner's CORE, which is a performance. That's art-based suspension. That's the motivation. So your motivation, if you're being suspended at, say, a festival in Thailand, or if you were Native American doing the rituals that your ancestors did, that's a different motivation. Most modern suspension is being done as personal ritual, not broader culture, at least in the West. You've got people who are like, hey, I want to hang from wood. That was me. I was like, hey, I want to give that a try. And then, I found that, I enjoyed it. And there were I could combine it with performing. I could make it a public spectacle, or I could do it privately for myself.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different motivations. That's the other thing. When you're trying to nail down what's going on here, we're literally talking about, humanity. There's 8.5 billion of us on the planet right now, right?
Yep.
So even if you get 1 million people to do something, that's kind of insignificant if we're talking about humanity. Yeah. And when we're talking about suspension, we're not even talking about, 1 million people. We're talking about maybe 10,000, tens of thousands at the most, sort of worldwide who are doing it. So we're really an insignificant little blip, but it is a way that people are trying to learn about themselves. And those cultures that have them built in as rituals, they are typically rites of passage, because that's because of what they do, right? They put you through a physical, mental hardship. And I'm not a doula. I don't believe that there's a difference. Mind and body are one thing for me. It's your brain is an organ, like your kidney's an organ. It just has a managerial function. But without getting into that separation, it is because there's this intuitive appeal, and most cultures do have like a body soul. They've got a dichotomy, a dualism that are going on. It's body mind or body mind soul. Sometimes they have 3 different elements going. But for me, one of the things that reaffirms that we are our bodies is that when you put yourself through extreme physical hardship, you automatically experience extreme mental hardship, right? Nobody goes and does something physically challenging and doesn't talk about the mental aspect. look at fighters, look at powerlifters. They
Mhm.
tell you it's a mental game. It's a mental game. It's a mental game. That's because they're doing something so extreme that the physicality of it is affecting even the organ that is their brain. Their brain sees what the rest of their body is trying to do, is trying to coordinate it, right? It's acting that way.
Oh, that's
So
so interesting.
when you push yourself way out to the edge there, you're gonna find something.
Mhm.
Now, whether or not that thing is good or bad to you, whether or not it's useful or not to you later on in life, whatever, but you're going to find it, right? Go run them. This is ancient knowledge, again, from around the world. It's something that's guided me since I was a teenager. When I was a teenager, I discovered Western occult magic. And sort of one of the basic tenets there is know thyself, right? Which is an ancient Greek thing, which is an ancient Chinese thing, which is an ancient Japanese, all know yourself. But how do you get to know yourself? You push yourself to your extremes. You find out where your limits are. And but for me, over my life, what I've discovered is it's sort of the daredevil's journey is what me and a couple of my friends call it. So when you're young, you push your limits, you try and break through them all the time like that. But then as you mature, you start to learn that, like, no, your limits often exist for, like, okay, on the other side of that limit is death. I've pushed myself that far, right? I've run the ultra marathon. I've stayed up awake for 9 days without sleep, or I've fasted for days. Like, on the other side of that is that failure is that when you push yourself to those limits, you do that so that you find your limits. Once you know what they are, back the hell off, right? For me, it's sort of like I say, the daredevil story is when you're young, because you can recover, because you still have the physical and mental ability to recover, and you have the space, you have the length of life ahead of you. That's what I would say to young people, like, you can't ruin your life until you're at least 40. Because if you're younger than 40, whether you're an addict or bankrupt or anything like that, you can come back from it. You've got enough time. Right? Yeah. When you're young, find that limit. And when you find it, when you go, okay, for me, that's it. That's as much as I can do. Step back. Because now you know where you'll be comfortable. If you find all your limits, you'll never accidentally trip over one, fail, and die. You stay inside them. That's knowing yourself. That's knowing yourself, and you find your limits so that you can know your limits. People who don't know their limits are the people who get in over their heads and get fucked up. Right? Go find your limit, then back off and stay inside it.
So does that kind of play in with the, like, putting yourself on the hook? I assume when this came to play after you had done multiple different things and pushed that limit, so then it kind of gave that, like, okay, I need to hit the next level. Okay, I need to hit the next level, rather than kind of letting it naturally play out. You kind of start searching for it.
I think that it did happen in a fairly natural way, especially for suspension, particularly because by the time that I met Alan and was learning about and starting to do flesh hook pulls and suspensions and things like that, I had done a lot of other things. And it wasn't so much that I was like, oh, I've got to push it further. I've got to push it further. I had reached a point there, which was kind of a transitional point, my thing, where I was like, all right, at that point in my life, if I was going to do something new that was extreme, I wasn't going to, again, like I wasn't trying to force the outcome, but I had to see a usefulness for it, right? I was like, okay, well, what am I going to learn about myself? Like, right? If it's, something like, oh, go do this endurance race. I'm like, well, I've already stayed up this long and I've already run this far. Does that give me something new? Or is there a value in it? Like, why do I want to do that? With suspension, I thought it was really cool. I was actually aware of it before I met Alan, but it was not something that I was thinking I wanted to try, because I was just like, well, I already pushed my physical. I've already pierced myself in a number of ways. I have pierced and pulled on myself. I've done is this going to give me a new feeling or a new experience that's going to significantly add to my, life database? And it didn't seem like it would. So I wasn't that interested. When I met Alan, I was seeing Traumatic Stress Discipline, his performance art group, perform suspensions on stage. That was the first time I saw them. And when I saw that, I realized, I was like, oh shit, look at the audience. And that in that, literally as it's happening, I was like, well, if that was me up here, here's what I'd be. And I'm like, oh, I want to do this as a performance. I want to use this as an artist. So my draw into suspension, because of where I was at that time in my life, wasn't I want to push another physical boundary, or I want to check my limits again. It was more, okay. I looked at it, I said, if I can do that, then I know I can use it as an act that people will really be a strong act. So the first thing is figure out if I can do it. Kind of like being a trapeze. Like, first time I saw people on trapeze, I was like, oh, I want to do it. And I tried it. I'm like, I'm not good at it. And I'm like, no matter how hard I work at it, I'll never be a great trapeze artist. But so I had to find out that wasn't in the cards for me. With suspension, I was like, oh no, this is something I can do and that I can now use theatrically.
What was that first experience like with it? Like when it actually, you got to go through it, what did that do for you?
I mean, it's going to be different for almost every, like you can broadly
Oh
say like,
yeah.
oh, some people do this. So I'm like, I don't like to hold my experience up as any type of archetype or anything. This
Yeah,
is
I just
literally
love hearing people's experiences with things that I will probably never experience, because like the
right.
thought of someone putting
And
a hook into me sounds absolutely horrendous. So like hearing
right.
how your brain went throughout that process is fascinating to
So
me.
yeah, by the time I was getting my first hooks put in, yeah, I had been pierced in so many. I had pierced myself as a pincushion, so the piercing didn't really matter. I was like,
Okay.
okay, it's big, whatever, but it's not going to be significantly different. It's going to be whatever it is, and that's it. And that's what it was. I was like, okay, yeah, I got hooks in my back. Now getting off the ground, I knew from like the pulling, I'm like, it's a weird thing. And there's like, even if you're wearing, if you want to simulate this sort of experience, you put on like a full shoulder to hip body, like climbing harness, right? Or like a safety harness, and just get lifted off the ground. And there's that moment where your weight shifts from there's still like a little bit on your toes. Your toes are just touching. But then when it's gone and you're literally like hanging, that's that floating. I compare it to like having dreams of flying. I'm like,
Okay.
this is what it feels like when you're flying. I am literally. It was similar to me when I learned to scuba dive. The first moment where I was underwater and I went, I'm underwater and I'm breathing. Like I don't have to go to the surface for anything. I'm breathing. I can just hang out down here. Holy shit. And it's like,
Wow.
and being suspended, I'm like, I'm in the air. I mean, I'm not feeling the pull. You're feeling it going up, you're going up. But then, at least for me and a lot of other people describe it, there's sort of a release, I guess it's not the best word for it, but there's a moment where you're like, oh, that burning and pulling that I'm feeling as I'm getting lifted off the ground. And then all of a sudden I'm off the ground and I'm just swinging. All right. And it's just,
Oh wow.
yeah, that's a feeling that'll stay with me. I remember my first suspension was 27 years ago now. And yeah, I
Okay.
remember that first moment of leaving the ground, like, where I'm not standing on the ground
Oh, I can
anymore.
imagine.
Hooks. And it's, so it's this, wow. And the lead into it though, I think is the most important thing. Cause again, I've seen people over the years have very good suspensions experiences and have very bad experiences. And just like I mentioned before with psychedelics, it's what they brought into it, but also how they were brought into it. Like, some people are like, oh, they're like, oh, this weekend people are spending, you should come and try it. And they'll come out there and do it with no prep. And it's the bedside manner of the people who are putting your hooks in, that are doing your rigging, pulling up, all that. You got to put positivity into it. Like I hate motivational posters. And I'm the first person to get on hey, look for the silver lining. Hey, go fuck yourself. That's me.
Yeah.
But there are contexts where that is absolutely true. And you've got to do it. Like if you're going to suspend, especially for your first suspension, like if anything's making you uncomfortable, either call it off or get it out. If you're like, man, I don't like that vase over there, take it out of the room, do it. Like give yourself the best opportunity to succeed.
And there's so much to that, because there's so much to the energy that people bring to these experiences. Because if you're in a good headspace mentally, those things hit you in a completely different euphoric way. If you still have a lot of demons and pain and trauma you need to work out, it tends to bring those things to the surface.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the stuff that we're not usually roll well to handle. And it's like, oh shit, I wasn't expecting those to come back into play. Why are those coming here?
I've seen it. I've seen it happen many times with people. It's like I said, it's, I say this joke because this one for me personally was an acid trip, not a suspension. But it was, having a pet that had to be put down. And I was like, look, I was not. And this was like at the time, like 14 years ago or something like that. But, I just, in my trip, I had this moment of peace where I was just like, you know what? It was the only thing we could have done. And it was the best caring thing for that. I'm sure that, he was better off that we ended his suffering the way that we did, blah, blah. But yeah, I'm in New Zealand off my ass on acid. And I just had this moment where I was like back there when we were talking, when the doctor was like, what do you want to do? But I was back there in that moment. But instead of being like, oh my God, I'm losing my best friend today. In that moment, I was like, this is the right thing. This is okay. Right. So I was coming to peace with a moment in a way that I didn't know I hadn't come to peace with it. It was not a conscious thought that I was having. I don't even know the last time that I had thought about when we had to have Fozzie, this ferret,
But
But
odds are it stuck with you in some,
yeah,
if that was
yeah,
surfacing in that moment, odds are that was something that, like,
right,
in that moment, because it's so hard losing a pet. We had to
right,
do the same thing with one that he got sick, and he was my buddy, and it was
yeah.
one of the harder things that I've been through, and you just, again, you just try to go through it the best you can,
Yeah.
but sometimes those things are sticky, and we don't realize how much they stick in your head, and the more you can, again, that's why I tried to start doing this, was
Right.
the
And
more
that's
I
what I say,
talked
like,
out my shit, it worked.
yeah, like I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't holding on to it. It wasn't like, oh, I didn't have problems with a current pet. But it was like out of nowhere, this as it brought it out. So I'm just like, yeah, if you got some trauma or something that you think you're good with, or I mean, this is me being the dark humorist and the guy who likes mushrooms and acid a lot too, which is like, oh, you think you've dealt with your trauma? Eat these. We'll find out real
Yeah.
fast if you've dealt with your trauma.
I equivalate the time I tried mushrooms to a lot of the way that I think about things now. It was not what I expected it to be. It was so much different. And I had this moment where I was
Right.
around it and I was like, I don't have a job. Why not? Let's see what happens. And it
But
was
you
such
didn't
a,
get what you expected, but you got something you needed, right?
oh, for
Yeah.
sure. Cause I was having these super profound thoughts, but I couldn't stop giggling. I was like laughing maniacally, but like felt like I was solving the world's problems in my head. And I was like, I think I know what life is. I think I figured this out, but
That
I'm
sounds
just
like a good trip,
laughing.
man.
It was such a wild experience, but I had heard so many different, like, podcasters and people talk about what they experienced on them. So then it was kind of that same thing. A moment popped in. I was like, oh, this is terrifying, but fuck it, let's see what happens. And it was one of
And
those
that's the thing, right?
experiences
Is that
that,
you can't generalize the experience. Everybody brings different baggage to that trip, so
yeah.
everybody's trip is different. Now, on the other side of that, that since you've tried it, I don't know how much you like. I've done more mushrooms than anyone would ever reasonably recommend
I love
in my
that.
lifetime, right? At one time, as a gag, me and a friend decided to do it. We took mushroom every day for 28 days, did a moon cycle
Oh,
on mushroom.
wow.
But I'm like, but even if you've only taken mushrooms a couple of times, if you've had that experience, especially if you've had a good experience, it's very easy to understand why now mushrooms are they're like a breakthrough drug for PTSD and
Oh,
depression,
for
especially among
sure.
veterans. And like that makes a lot, if you've done them, you understand why.
Yep. And I
Like,
totally understand why people are freaked out by them too.
mhm.
And like, I live in Indiana, so marijuana is still illegal. All of these
Well, I'm
things
in
are still
Texas.
very
Yeah.
taboo. Yeah. So it's very different here than it is in most of the country. So
Yeah.
the mindset on it is completely different. So like the readily available that they can be or whatever. So I haven't got to experience it as
Right.
much, but I totally understand why people are freaked out because it does pull those demons to the forefront. If you come at it and you're at a negative spot in life and you take a wild dose of mushrooms, you're
Yeah.
going to have a rough
Well,
time because those things are going to pop up and it's going
right.
to almost force you to deal with your shit in a weird way. And for me, I had worked through a lot of my stuff, but taking them brought so much more to the forefront where I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't know anything. I've got so much to figure out. This is
Well,
okay, cool.
and
We have a lot of work to do.
that goes back to what I was saying before about, whatever you're doing, whether it's suspension, mushrooms, running a marathon, building a house, whatever, give yourself the best chance to succeed, right?
Mhm.
So in the case of mushrooms, go in with a therapist, with a group of friends that know what this is like and can guide you. That's why you don't do acid without a guide. That's not just, hippie bullshit. That's some actual wisdom.
See, I've
Yeah.
always been scared of that one. What is acid? I don't know that I've
I
ever
mean,
experienced
essentially,
it.
think of it as this is not, there are so many ways that this is wrong, but in a functional, like, dumb it down explanation, think of acid as synthetic mushrooms. It's
Okay.
different. So, psilocybin and LSD are not the same chemical. And yes, there are significant differences between how they are processed in your body and how people will react like that. But a good sort of, if you want to be like, what is this to a 5-year-old, mushrooms and acid can be, until you're actually doing them, you can consider them interchangeably. If you're
Okay.
going to start doing them, especially if you're going to start doing them with a purpose, like as part of therapy,
Yeah.
whether it be professional or just sort of your own therapy experiment to deal with your shit in whatever way, yeah, then you're doing it different. The big one is that acid can be, and this is again going to vary by individual,
Mhm.
but it's going to be far more intense and more of a completely immersive experience. Like on mushrooms, I've never lost track of reality, right? I'm not walking into walls, not saying that. I'm not thinking even and even with mushrooms, I've never hallucinated realistically.
Me neither.
Right? I've gotten some color halos and been like, oh, this is cool. Oh, what a great day to be out in a beautiful field with all these colors. That's mushrooms, right? Now, on acid, it might be the same, or it might be, oh shit, all these colors have turned into oil paint. Oh my God, I'm oil paint. How are we not fucking merging into each other right now? Oh shit, it's acid, right?
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And with mushrooms too, and again, it's going to depend. What are you doing? Are you sitting around with friends watching a movie, or are you going for a hike? What, it's just like computers, garbage in, garbage out. It's that. So, put good stuff in, good input, good output, bad input, bad output.
Nature is the best for that. I felt like I loved everything, and nature was my best friend.
Dude, yeah, get outside. If you're going to take psychedelics and you're not going to take them outside on a beautiful day, you're kind of wasting part of them. You're missing one of the best parts.
Well, and I think that kind of correlates to just how much these things that grow on our planet and how much our planet naturally gives us what we need in so many ways, shapes, and form, whether it be medicine, whether it be healing, whether it just be the fresh air and the good feeling it gets to get the fuck away from technology sometimes. Currently, I'm living like a pioneer. The fact that we are having this podcast right now is a minor miracle because our power's been out for give or take 16 hours. I have a redneck extension cord running from my car through my window into running a hotspot. That way I could, at least get on here and do this. But the fact that we're talking is a minor miracle. But pulling away from electronics has been so nice.
So there, I was going to say something earlier. You said getting away from technology, but there you said electronics, and I was just going to point out, we human beings really need a lot of our technology to survive moment to moment. So we don't want to get away from technology so much as we want to get from parts of technology, certain technologies, and screens and things like that for sure.
That break time is very necessary because it's not going anywhere. As humans, we can utilize it so much to enhance our experience, but it's almost that it falls into too much where everything has some sort of wave coming off of it. And that's probably not super great for our brains. I cannot imagine.
I'm not a big, because I'm actually very much a technophile. I was an early adapter. I was getting online in the 80s when most people hadn't heard about the internet yet. I was able to, because my parents were teachers. I had access to our high schools. Our high school had one computer in 1988. It was in the guy's office, and it had a single line that went into the Plattsburgh State University 30 miles away, and that was how I could get onto their network and get on. And this is back when it's just straight. There's nothing but chat. There are no web pages. That doesn't exist anymore. This is basically just so you'd go in there and see who was on and just talk about shit. Usually you'd exchange ways for hacking phone numbers and phone phreaking and shit like that. But I have a general sort of theory about technology with human beings, which is it takes us a long time to figure out the right way to use something after we invent it. So we misuse technologies for tens, hundreds, even thousands of years before we figure out how to use them responsibly. Agriculture being the big example. It's we still do fucked up things farming wise that ruin the land. I'm we need to keep growing food for generations, right? But
it's not going anywhere.
I'm not, I'm never going to be like a Mennonite or Amish or say we need to roll back on it. But I feel like one of our problems is we have been so successful as a species using creating technology to solve our problems that, getting back to what you're saying before about the planet giving us things, or there being, I don't know, you don't even have to put it in sort of to me, that's kind of that kind of a hippieist kind of the world will give us what. I'm no, I just think, look, there's already an answer out there. We're creating one when we could. Why are we trying to create something in a lab when we haven't finished looking out to see what's already there ready to be picked up?
It is usually money. It's always
that's the modern version of it. But this goes back. Like I say, when I think about this, I'm thinking about human beings as a species. All right. Yeah. The whole thing with Western capitalism and pharmaceutical companies is a very, very modern event. We can see how it came out of that history very easily. And it's incredibly twisted and fucked up and wrong-headed and doing us many disservices. But that's not just our modern problem. This goes back to literally, we're talking about food. So I love evolutionary biology. It's a hobby of mine. I follow a bunch of biologists, and there's a professor at Harvard who he tries to take his work in evolution and say, how can we apply this in our daily lives? And most of it impacts kids, where he's like, look, putting shoes on kids too soon, we've got the data. It fucks up their feet, right? Also, small text. Almost, you know that nearsightedness is almost always created by nature. Nearsightedness almost didn't exist in humans until we invented books. And what happened is
fascinating.
Okay, so yeah, nearsightedness is this wild case of this where, and one of the reasons they figured it out was guards in London in the city would get nearsighted, but soldiers stationed out in the country wouldn't. The ones who had time to read. What happens is you get nearsighted because and I was nearsighted. I had laser corrective surgery. You stare so intently at a young age, you're focusing too tight. Your muscles of your eyes actually warp the shape of your eyeball so that it doesn't focus right.
Oh,
it's from reading too soon. So it boggles my mind that we haven't done this yet. But essentially, if you want kids, because this is how I got nearsighted. My vision was perfect. I got to the age that I was reading, and I was a bookworm. And within a couple of years, I had warped my eyes into being nearsighted.
Mm-hmm.
And then so large print for kids. That's all you got to do.
Yeah. So I have a question with that too. Does that correlate with like the same thing of putting shoes on kids too early? Does that have the same effect with glasses?
That's one of those other big things I was mentioning before, like putting shoes on kids too early when they're learning to walk. It'll give you, that will echo throughout their lives potentially with foot and back problems and things. So like that's what I say. What I'd use that as a point of like leaning into that biology, right? That's there. And so instead of coming up with technology, like I'm glad we invented laser eye surgery to fix my nearsightedness, but you know what? We didn't have to invent laser eye surgery. We could have just
ways to do it.
We could have been paying attention and then just given me large print books as a kid.
Yeah. It's so interesting that it's almost like that with all of the things. Like we literally started this conversation talking about pain, and if we use technology to just constantly make us more and more comfortable and not have to utilize these parts of our body, it does kind of do that to most of these things, where if we're using AI instead of our brains and you're using it to just find the answer all the time and you're not using it to help you, I guess could that do basically the same thing?
It can. Well, here's the thing. When I say about like, I'm always very careful about not being technophobic, because in my mind, it's just as bad to say technology is going to kill us all is just as extreme as technology is going to save us all, right?
Yeah.
The real answer and what will actually happen is probably somewhere in the middle, right? Some technologies will fuck us up, and other technologies will save us from those fuck ups, and we'll keep counterbalancing as long as we can. So if you go back to ancient Greece, when they were first starting to write things down, and we're talking about like, so Plato and Socrates thought that the written word was going to ruin mankind because now you wouldn't have to remember things anymore. You could go read it. Like, think about it. These are the academics, the intellectuals of their time, and they are anti-reading because having a book means you don't have to remember it anymore. You can go check in the book. Right.
And in most cases, it's just fear of change.
Right. So, yeah. So you got to be careful. You got to be careful of that sort of element where it's like, that's not really the problem that's going to happen here. Right now, I feel like there are other contributors to things we talk about, like modern short attention span, and our attention span is getting short. And yeah, they are by certain metrics. But I feel like that's one of the things we got to be careful not to think that problems are simpler than they are. Because that's when you get into things like, well, look at biology and transmit. You're like, it's X and Y. And like, well, actually, biologists know about a lot of other chromosomal configurations. That the problem is, if you stop learning at 5th grade, then you think it's a boy or it's a girl, and that's it, right? Mm-hmm. The problem is that's not the real world. That's what we dumbed it down for you, and you stayed dumb.
Yeah, right? Knowledge is so powerful. Being able, that's why, again, like, doing this and getting to talk to so many different people and ask questions to literally all walks of life about all of these different topics and things that I find interesting. You just get to learn and hear everyone's different perspective. And it's so fascinating because as humans, it seems like we all have our own like purpose or piece to the puzzle in some way, shape, or form, where you see all the same patterns, you hear all of the same like human wiring, but everybody kind of has that something for them. Like, again, that's why
we all have aptitudes, both physical and that distinct.
Yeah.
So it's one of the things. That actually leads to a lot of problems in the world, because the problem being that we see somebody who's successful at one thing and we think, oh, well, they must be successful in general. It's, you look at our politics in America right now, and you look at the sort of people that are up there, and you're like, and we often hear that that's a stupid person's idea of a smart person. That's a poor person's idea of a rich person. They're not actually what they are. But it's one of the things, we see somebody and we go, oh, well, and you'll hear people say like, oh, you think you're smarter than him? He's a millionaire. You're not a millionaire. I'm like, dude, being smart enough to make $1 million in the stock market is a different type of intelligence from being smart enough to, I don't know, care about the climate or not beat your kids or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's one of the, we very often think that if somebody is good at or successful at one thing, they're good at or successful at a lot of things. And that's not true. For the most part, many of us aren't even good at one thing, much less a bunch of things, right? So
it's like, so hard to focus that attention on just one thing, like trying to hone in on one thing. I've made that mistake a million times where I'm giving energy to 80 different projects and things. And it's like, okay, let's just focus on this one and let's give everything to this, get it done. Let's not have 80 different things going on right now. And then I get overwhelmed and freak out. It's like, okay, let's dial it back. Let's focus the energy on one thing. And then I bet it goes a heck of a lot better.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's sort of in the personal, when you're trying to do personal growth, it's important to do that, to focus on the one. I'm thinking more of like the sort of thing where somebody's like, oh, I'm trying to think of somebody without being, where it's less subjective of an overall. But well, if somebody says, I heard that Tim Cook, CEO, he eats a beet every morning for breakfast because I'm like, you understand that as brilliant as he may be at leading a massive company, a world like that, he has zero credentials health-wise, right? Like, so his diet, like, look, if Michael Jordan wants to tell me something about my jump shot, I'm going to fucking listen. If Michael Jordan wants to tell me how to train my pet, fuck off, Mike. You got no credit there. I don't know if you're a good dog trainer. I don't know, or tell me how to raise my kid. No, fuck you.
Yeah. And that's kind of where the world went with all of the different ways people are quote unquote influencers. Well,
exactly. That is what influencing is. It's influencing is doing it without it's basically telling people what to do and getting them to listen without having any credit. It used to be, you had to be like, hey, I made $1 million, so listen to what I say. Right. And I'm like, well,
now your credit's just fame and followers.
Right. You're an evil prick. And what you're telling me to do is wrong. And also you were born a millionaire. Right. That's the other one. I have people who are like, oh, well, I'm going to listen to, fuck it. We'll just go this way because I don't care. All right. People are going to say, Donald Trump's a millionaire. Are you smarter than Donald Trump? You're fucking right. I am, about a ton of shit. Right. Well, he knows a lot more about being born a millionaire than I can ever know. Right. But look, go get a middle school exam in whatever subject you want, and I will fucking beat him at it, because that man is an absolute idiot at being anything other than born rich.
And that's kind of how most people, I think, hold themselves back. I know I did that forever, where you look at these people or these things and you only see these certain aspects of it. And it's like,
he's a millionaire, he's an idiot. Why can't I be? I must be even stupider than him because I'm not a millionaire. No, I'm a millionaire because I wasn't born rich, and I'm not an evil scumbag who takes advantage of everybody.
When they're just humans, like they're humans that have done something different than you have with your life, and that's what they're doing. But we're all the same. We're all humans. We're just people trying to figure this shit out. They just have a different level of success. They have a different level of numbers in their bank account. That's the only difference between you and them. Not it's what they've done with the time they've spent in life.
It's idolatry.
Who they are.
It's idolatry, and I hate it. Like, I don't like when people, I've had people come up to me. I had my career for 30 years now. People come after the shows like, I want to be you. I want to do what you do. I really enjoy it. Like, no,
be you. Yeah.
And remember, I'm just an asshole who was doing what he wanted to do for himself, and it happened to work. Now, I've been lucky enough to have people say that I've inspired them. I've helped people in various ways when I can. I like to try and give advice. I help out shows. I've helped people financially with performance, things like that. I'm glad that I've got to do that. But I'm like, ultimately, I was just me trying to be me, and it worked out. And if we dig deeper, like, I think it worked out because I did it certain ways and blah, 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 and whatever else. But I'm like, don't ever fucking put me on a pedestal. Like anytime somebody says to me, every now and then, somebody, I understand it's a compliment, but again, I'm a comedian and I'm me, so I have to like fucking pull the air out of it. They'll rather be like, "Oh my God, you're my hero," and I'm like, "You need to get a better hero." Like I'm not a bad, I'm not a villain, but I'm not a fucking hero. I'm not trying to be a hero either. I'm trying to do
what you're doing is cool though. Like the way that you like is just reading about your story and what you did. And I do kind of want to dive into it a little bit before we run out of time. Like going back to like you were a PhD candidate, was it in philosophy? So like going from being in that world to taking that first step to becoming a performer and doing the things that you wanted to do, like that's not an easy thing to do. That's not a quick life decision to just go, we'll just do this. It wasn't a
quick life decision, but it was easy in a certain sense. It was easy in the sense that it needed to be easy, which in that sense is that I was, and this kind of loops back to what we were talking about before, about you got to find out what you want to do, what you're good at, right? Whatever you're trying to find. Whatever. So I'm really good at academic philosophy. Like I went to school for free because I was on scholarships the whole time, the academic scholarships, and then teaching, and I love that. But I get to this point where I recognize that this wasn't something I wanted to do with my life, right? I didn't want to be I wanted to be a philosophy professor when it was fun, but I didn't want to be a philosophy professor full time, right?
Yeah.
And I often tell people that are young. I just told my niece this because she's starting college and she's going into astrophysics, and it's amazing. I'm really, really proud of her. But I was like, make sure that's what you want to do, because just because you're good at something doesn't mean you have to do it.
Yep.
Right. And like, if you don't know whether or not you want to do something, ask yourself this: do you enjoy the parts of it that suck? Like she likes skiing and snowboarding, stuff like that. Oh, well, do you like cleaning your gear and packing it up? Not really, but you do it, right? And you don't get angry about it. You're not like, oh, I just enjoyed this whole day of skiing. Now I've got to take care of my skis. This sucks. No, you're like, wow, what a great day of skiing. I'm going to take care of this stuff. Tomorrow I'm going to go skiing. Like, if you can, you don't have to enjoy the bad stuff, but if you can still have fun while you're doing the annoying stuff, then that's the thing for you. And that's what I figured about performing. And I was performing while I was going to college. Like, it was sort of it wasn't my backup career, but there was a moment where I was like, hey, I'm at the point with this where I can make an attempt. I can take a real shot at being a professional freak, is what I was calling it.
Yeah.
Or I can stick with the safe road that I've got, but that I know isn't going to really satisfy me, fulfill me, make me that happy, might ultimately burn me out. Sort of thing. So I was like, look, and again, going back to what I was saying before, if you're young enough, you can't ruin your life. And at that point, I was 24 years old, and I was like, if you're going to take a shot at something wild, stupid, and crazy, do it now, because you got time to bounce back.
Absolutely. So what was like the first step of it? What, like, going from what you were doing, what was like the first step with the modifications?
Well, I mean, modification wise, this is why, like I say, like, things were overlapping it the whole time. This, like I say, it wasn't a quick decision, but it was an easy decision by the time it was made.
Yeah, so the green lights all hit, and you're like, all right.
Yeah. Well, you go back to when I'm 18 years old, right? And I'm a freshman in college. I have this moment where I see Japanese tattooing in a book in a library. And it's sort of the first, like, I knew what tattoos were, right? Even though I grew up in rural upstate New York, I didn't grow up in a cave. I knew about tattoos, right? But I never thought about tattoos as art. Like, that just wasn't a way that I thought about. Tattoos were something that, my dad's in the military. So I'm like, yeah, some soldiers have tattoos. Some of these farm boys I know have hand poked tattoos into themselves, right? I just wasn't paying attention to it. I see the works of these Japanese masters as an 18-year-old who's thinking he might want to be an artist. I'm studying philosophy and art. That's what I'm going to college for. And I'm like, ooh, being an artist is kind of a dream. Now I'm seeing this and I'm like, okay, this is art. This isn't just tattooing. This isn't a craw. This isn't somebody's, mom or born to lose, right? This is a work of art designed to be put on a body intentionally. And I was blown away. And I started thinking about tattooing at that moment. And now over the next 4 years, I learned about, and I'm into circus and sideshow at that point anyway. So I start learning about the tattooed man in America, because I have this idea of, like, right away I see it. I'm like, I want that. I want to be completely tattooed, but not like that. I didn't want a Japanese tattoo because I'm not Japanese, right?
Yeah.
I saw the power of the medium, but I didn't, and not that I didn't like it. I think Japanese tattooing is beautiful. It's just not what I'm going to wear because it doesn't reflect me. So, but I'm like, so over the years, I'm thinking about this, and finally, at probably 2 or 3 years, so probably about my sophomore, junior year, I kind of hone in on the old tattooed men of the sideshow, and I'm like, that would be, and because I'm thinking, I want to do performance art, like I want to be Vito Acconci, I want to be Chris Burden, I want to be Christo, making large installations and doing weird performances and blowing people's minds, getting all surrealist and shit. This is 19-year-old me. Yeah. I'm in my 50s now.
Oh, so, yeah. How we change over the times.
It's extra silly. Like it was silly then, but it's extra silly to me now.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I get this idea of a tattoo man transformation. Now, I want to do it, right? 19, 20-year-old me is like, I want to do it. But I've been raised with enough sense to be like, you don't just run out and do this. This would be a really stupid thing to just run out. Hey, let me go down to the tattoo parlor, tattoo my face today. I just made a decision. Yeah. No.
Big life decision.
So I work on this idea, this concept for literally years until I get to the point where I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna run out and do all of this, but I gotta get tattooed. Like we were talking about before, like, okay, when I saw suspension, I was like, I want to suspend, but I don't know if I can do it. But if I can do it, I know what I'm gonna do, how I'm gonna perform on stage on hooks. Same thing with the tattooing. I know I want to do it. Can I handle it? So I picked a part of the design that I had come up with for my back and kind of broke off a corner of it. That was a whole to itself, where I was like, the deal was I went and I go, either this will be the only tattoo I ever get, or it will be part of the only tattoo I ever get. Right. But like, either way, I'm going to have a story. It's going to be its own thing. And it's all right. And it's on my shoulder where I can cover up part of the back. If I can turn it and take it. I go through it, and literally while I'm getting tattooed, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, fuck yeah, I can do this. I'm going to tattoo my whole body. Now I just got to figure out how without becoming destitute and homeless. Right. Yeah. This is 1993, 94. I'm like, all right. And, I'm going to school on scholarship and I'm working, whatever, but I don't have money. Right. I am subsistence living. I'm minimum wage jobbing it from here to there. So and thus begins the starving artist phase, where I'm trying to figure out a way to make enough money to where I don't have to worry about looking like this and having any income. And what I did was I ended up getting jobs that sort of allowed me a lot of freedom. So before I went back to grad school, I was working midnight to 6. It's actually more like 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. sometimes at a warehouse, the overnight shift. And, they don't give a fuck at all. Like, if I show up and I'm literate, I got a job. I was running the crew within weeks because I literally had 2 guys on my crew that couldn't read. They were good workers and they moved the boxes great. They couldn't read. So, I mean, that's the level. But to me, I was like, this affords me a freedom, right? To be able to do it. So all I wanted to do back then was get tattooed and train karate. Right. And this job let me do all of that, but at that point, like there does become this sense of, oh, you're not living up to your potential. What are you going to do? Because I was an honor student. Like I said, I got a full academic ride. I was coming from this small town where, people were like, oh, you won all these awards. You got to do something. And I didn't feel a lot of pressure. Ultimately, I didn't really care about that pressure, but I knew it was there that people looked at it. But I sort of like, well, if I can do it, I should go see. I should go, I'm good at school. So I applied. I got grants. I was like, and it's the same reason I went to school as an undergrad. I was like, it's free.
Yeah, why not?
I'm not going to do it. I looked at college. I was like, well, somebody just wrote a check for me to have 4 years of a party if I want to. I'll just go take advantage of it. Without that, without the scholarship, I still would have went to school because my parents were teachers and they would have pushed me towards it. But I might have dropped out to work or do something else before. But as it was, since it was there, I did it. Grad school became the same thing. And once I sort of felt like, oh, this isn't the right place for me, I put all my effort into performance and art. And I was working on this. I was using my grant money for graduate school to pay for tattoos.
I love it. Well, and I feel like when you find that passion and then that thing that lights you up, and you just get those green lights of like, oh, I have no idea why I'm doing this, like, but this is what feels right. So
if it does, like, lean into it, and see where it takes you.
Because you don't get these chances very often in life. You don't get those opportunities where the stars align and all these things fall into place and you're like, oh shit, should I do this? And I feel like the answer is almost always yes, because you take that risk on something and then it turns into you living your most happy, fulfilled life rather than just doing the safe route and staying somewhere that you're basically watching the writing on the wall of like, oh, I'm going to be miserable as fuck if I keep doing what I'm doing. Happiness, like that's again, quitting my job and doing what I'm doing now. It was the exact same thought process. Was I hated what I was doing. I quit. I got an immediate release of this like sense of freedom. And I'm like, oh, that's what that was all of this stress and bullshit.
And when you're at that point, that's the thing, right? That
yeah.
Is the only thing I would say to balance that is like when you're like, for you personally in your journey, you got to that point and then you broke up. It's, you know, it's always better if you can see it kind of coming. If you're like, oh no, this book. But when you talk about like leaning and when opportunities come, the answer is yes and take it. The other thing the only thing I caution on the other side of that is be aware of the opportunities that you are inviting to yourself, because there is so much in life that comes down to luck, right?
Yeah.
But if you are, it's better to be lucky than to be good, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're lucky enough to get an opportunity and not good enough to then take advantage of that, so you got to be building yourself up. Make sure that you are working to be. And the other one is like, you will make choices that will determine which, like, if I had stayed in academia, right, I would have been saying, okay, the opportunities that are going to come to me are either, you know, tenured professor, think tank research, like those are the opportunities. So I'm going to be as good at my subject matter as I can in case one of those opportunities show up. But those are the only opportunities that I'm looking for. I could miss other ones. So when you say the opportunities come to you, take them and lean into them. Like, no, be aware of what opportunities you're inviting to yourself. When I was in school, I was inviting opportunities as a philosopher, but I was not inviting opportunities as a performer. I had to shift my strategy and wait and hope that the opportunities as a performer would come once I gave them that chance, once I made that possible.
Absolutely.
It makes a lot of sense, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I think I just skipped a step because that was essentially what happened throughout this. Was like when I quit that job, it didn't instantly happen where I jumped right into this because I quit the job. I quit the job and had no idea what the fuck I was going to do with life. And then this popped in my head and it became this nagging thing that kept hitting over and over again. And it was like, I can't, that's like the complete opposite of what I've ever done in my life. I hate talking in front of people. I get super nervous, even like being on a Zoom call with people. Doing a podcast is not what we're going to be doing. And then it just kept coming. It kept hitting me. And it was like, okay, well, I guess this is what we're doing. And then went through a transition with a different podcast, stepped away from it, kind of put a bunch of time and energy into myself to continue to make myself better. I've lost 100 pounds. I'm in the gym every day now. And I basically look at it like, if I'm not taking the steps every day to better myself, to do these things that I need to be doing to put myself in position when these opportunities do come, or whenever I do get that, then I can knock them out of the park when they come. If I'm not prepared and I'm still not confident, I'm still super overweight, I'm not preparing for my guest, well, then I'm going to fuck up that opportunity because I'm going to come out and fumble and I'm not going to have the ability to have a cool conversation with somebody because I'm in my head, if that makes sense.
Yeah, when you talk about skipping, I think we're talking about different steps at different stages. Like there are points where you've got to be like making sure that the right opportunities are looking for you, and then you've got to make sure you're in the right spots to take advantage. And as they go, but the other one, like to what you're talking about, like about being committed, there is, I would say, like, if you are going to take an opportunity, once you do get the chance for that, then you do it 110%. Martial arts was a big thing in my life. It still is, but I don't train formally. But we used to have an expression which is bury it to the elbow. You don't punch the target, you punch the thing on the other side. And that's what and we also used to say, it's an old expression, I can't remember in Japanese now, but it's, if you're gonna fail magnificently. Like, don't just trip and stub your toe. Fucking fall down, burn down the building, blow up the car, let it like it. But know that you gave absolutely everything to it. It's like, so if you can invite the right opportunities into your life, be ready for them when they show up, and then put yourself into them 100%, your success rate is going to be so much. Like, look, everybody, like most people get there. There's three things I just said there, right? So invite the opportunity, be ready for the opportunity, go 110%. There are some people that just go 110% at life without a plan, without an opportunity, and they just run themselves out there. It's like, holy shit, dude, you're going to explode, right?
Been there, done that multiple times.
Right? And then there are the people who are like, okay, an opportunity came, and I'm ready for it, but you half-ass it, right? And then you go, all right, or the wrong opportunity came and I worked really hard at the wrong thing. Like it's all three of those things, right? And it's got to be in the order. That's therein lies the trick. That's why everybody doesn't pull it off.
Yeah, it's almost like it really does benefit you to face each one of those, to go through each of those experiences where it does not go the right way, and to feel that, because you just become callous to it in the same way where you're not as afraid of it anymore, I guess.
And that loops back to what we were talking about before about the having things think for you and things like that. The bigger problem with AI, which is not what most people think it is. It's weird because as a philosopher and a technophile, I've been, in AI rumors since the 80s. I have a friend who's actually an ethicist that works for an AI company. She's from grad school. She's a philosopher, and is like, look, what we're really talking about still are large language models. And people don't understand how they work, but because it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, they think it's a duck.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it's talking. It sounds like it's talking. It's not really talking. It's using math to place words in order. That's what's literally really happening behind the scenes. But what happens when you rely on something to give you answers, when you don't do real research, it's like not going right. You can't become a great marathoner by thinking about running or having other people tell you how to run, right? No amount of coaching will turn you into a great athlete. You got to go out and put in the physical work, right? Mm-hmm. Thinking is just like any other exercise. Think of your brain as a muscle, if that helps, as an analogy. If you don't actually do the reps, the muscle doesn't grow, right? If you don't actually do the thinking, your brain doesn't create the neural pathways it needs, the muscle fibers that move the arm, the pathways that create the thoughts. You're letting something else do it for you. You're not doing that. And that's why failure is important, right? Pain is important, not just important, but it's also important. So what is the important lesson for pain for kids is when you fall down, get up. Oh, you scuffed your knee, you'll live, right? You learn what pain is important and what isn't. You learn the difference between, ow, I scraped myself, and oh shit, my knee is sprained, I need help, right?
Yep.
You only learn that through experience. Thinking is the same way. When you're learning math and they give you 100 problems, you're like, I know how to do addition. I don't have to do this 100 times. Yes, you do. We're burning a pathway into your brain. You're creating a road between neurons in your brain that does that process for you. That's why the repetition isn't punishment. It's not stupid. It's not whatever you think it is. It is the process. It is how you learn. It's how you get fit. It's fitness for your brain is using it and thinking. Fitness for your body is using it.
Absolutely. And with like those patterns, it's the same thing too with like your past patterns. If you watch how those things stick to you over time, you just kind of absorb these things that you think are normal that you do, and then you start doing work on yourself. Yeah. And it's like, oh shit, I didn't realize that was what I was doing, or I didn't realize that caused this reaction. And there were a lot of those too.
Really important, because that realization is only step one. Realizing you have a habit, step one. Breaking the habit, well, you got then step two, figure out how to break the habit. Step three, our old friend repetition again. You created that bad habit by doing it over and over again. Even if you look at it and be like, oh, I got this bad habit. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is X. I should do this. Okay, how are you going to fix that? By by repeating a good behavior. It's not enough to know that you'd be like, oh yeah, I figured it out. I understand now. I figured it out. That's great. Now go do the work.
Yes, because it's so much. Like I can say, I've talked about this in the last couple of podcasts, but I can say every night that I'm not going to go get some sort of snack because I worked my ass off at the gym in the morning. But boy, again, at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, I'm struggling my ass off to not walk in there and make a bowl of cereal.
To doubt the existence of free will. Like I've walked by. There are yogurt covered pretzels sitting about 15 feet from me right now. And look, they're not bad for me, and I'm not on a diet. I can have them if I want to, right?
Yep.
But the thing is, when I've decided that I'm not going to eat anymore for the night, right? I go brush my teeth. I come back out and I see them. And there's a part, and I'm like, wait, do I actually have free will? Because I feel like something is making my arm reach towards this freaking box right now.
Yeah. It's like I can say all day long how hard I worked out. I can fast all day long, but it's like then we put the kids to bed and that instant craving takes over my brain. And I'm like, I want sugar and I want it right now. And I can fight it. Like I
want that sugar right there. It's right there.
And it's like, hey, it's just in there. I can just go get this right now. I'm going to feel really good. And it's a 50-50 shot whether I'm going to go do it or not. But there's a lot of nights where I'm like,
I deserve this.
Yeah, you talk yourself into it, and then the
Fuck
next
yeah.
morning at the gym, I'm tired and sluggish and pissed off at myself because I ate a bunch of sugar the night before, and it's
Mhm.
like, "Hey, this is on you. You can
This is you.
control that part. You
You
have
did
to
this to
have the
you.
discipline to say no
Mhm.
to the fat version of you that really, really still wants the candy and the cereal. Don't
Yep.
do that."
Don't do it. Don't do it, man.
But our
But it's
brains.
but I'm like, and the other thing is like, it's it's an expression I remembered as a kid that I used to like, but now I hate, which is you don't get a medal for doing your duty.
Mhm.
Right? Which is, okay, you do it because it's the right thing to do. And but
Yeah.
you know what? It would kind of be a better place if we did. So I'm like, because what you just described and all that is not fucking easy. And I
Yeah.
don't think we get like there's a lot of people out there, and it's the whole like, you don't know what burden someone's carrying like that. But just beyond that, I'm like, dude, if somebody's doing it, like if somebody pulls it off, like, let me just say, fucking good for you, man.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You lost 100 pounds. That's no fucking joke. And it doesn't
Thank
matter if
you.
doesn't matter if you're going from 700 to 600 or 300 to 200 or 251. It doesn't matter. Like any significant weight loss like that is, it requires time, as you know, time and dedication like that.
Ooh.
And, I feel like, we talked about celebrity before, fuck a bunch of celebrities. Most of these celebrities, what have they ever done that's worth looking at? Like, you've done something, man. And you're not alone. It's not like you're not like, oh my God, we found the only man in the world who lost 100. No, there are people walking around you every day that have won this battle. And you know what?
Yep.
Give them a fucking pat on the back. You're like, hey, dude, good for you. Like, you see somebody at work who's lost a bunch of weight, or like they're like, hey, now I'm going to the gym or something. Like, fuck yeah, good for you. Don't be
Yeah.
because I mean, I just man, it's partially where I grew up and how I grew up and being always like, somebody be like, oh, hey, you coming fishing this weekend? Nah, man, I'm going to the gym. I'm gonna do it. Oh, what are you gonna be, Arnold Schwarzenegger? Immediately shit on it, right?
Yeah.
Immediately,
Like,
and
no, I
not in a
didn't
mean way, but it
don't
was
wanna
just
die when I'm 60.
right. Yeah, it's like no. If you see somebody who's actively trying to do something to improve themselves, like you don't have to do it. You don't even have to like it. But I mean, fuck, how hard is this,
Yeah,
man? Good for you.
absolutely,
Just
and
fucking thumbs
that was
up.
the whole gist about it was, like, learning how to do all of this stuff, learning and throughout the process, I learned so much about myself. I learned all these different habits. I learned that there were issues in our marriage. I learned that there were childhood things that I hadn't handled. I learned that I was being an asshole to my kids at times, like, so many
Yeah.
different pieces of this, and they would all just kind of fall apart at different times and force
Yeah.
me to evaluate what was going on, and it was almost just continuously showing me my weak points, and
Yep.
I just would kind of dive into them, figure out what was going on, or whatever, handle the discipline, tell myself, hey, no, we can do this. And
Yep.
then I think pushing myself through my first fast was one of the big, like, contributors to switching how I ate food, because it was like, oh, I don't need all of what I'm eating. I'm
Right.
eating out of survival. I'm not eating because I'm hungry. I'm eating
Yep.
because I'm eating this out of survival, like it's never going to happen again. And I'm doing that with every meal. We can't do that anymore.
Well, and that's why it's important with kids, especially we get back to like AI and this sort of thing. But even with food, like discomfort is part of life. And it's perfectly fine to try to alleviate and minimize it, and whatever. But inevitably, just like inevitably in life, at something, sometime you are going to fail. At some
Mhm.
time, you are going to be uncomfortable. All right. How are you going to deal with that? All right. And you're supposed to learn as a kid that, well, tantrums don't work. They don't make the
Mhm.
rain stop. They don't make, I want to go outside and play. Well, it's a fucking thunderstorm. You can't
Yep.
right now. So what are we going to do about it? Do you want to be angry about it, or do you want to do something else? And so those experiences are actually really important. Going back to that evolutionary biologist again, another thing for him that's very big is food.
Mhm.
So it turns out modern dental problems are largely because of modern food.
That
Right?
checks out.
Our jaws are so evolution designed us. We have multiple rows of teeth. We have baby teeth and adult teeth come in, right? Our jaws are designed so that by chewing food, it sets our teeth in place,
Oh.
strengthens them in there, right? So if you are not chewing sufficiently rough, hard food at your developmental ages, your teeth will crowd and shift, and you'll have all sorts of problems with it. So by
Huh.
using processed foods, we usually look at processed food and go, oh, they're bad for your organs, they're bad, too many calories and you get fat, whatever. No, processed food starts doing its damage to kids because we give them foods that our bodies evolved eating natural food, eating ingredients,
Mhm.
apples, dates, even cooked meat. Like we give these kids, and I'm talking about baby food, right? You got to wait till they have their teeth in. It's a window of time. It's very specific. Like this is sort of like people are like, oh, well, you told us to let the kids eat dirt so they'd get in, like at a very specific window, not all the time. Right?
Yeah. No, don't make that their primary diet. That's not good. Don't do that. Look,
when their adult teeth start coming in, it is very important that they are exercising their jaw, right? And one of the things we've actually figured out with studies, you can fake this. Chew gum.
Oh.
Like, chewing gum isn't just good for like the chemicals in your mouth. Like that. It's the motion. You're supposed to be chewing, right? And our bodies have evolved to, when we eat food, we burn calories by muscles breaking it down, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you process food, you do that breakdown outside the body. The body doesn't have to do it, so the calories are absorbed quicker. That's why you get fatter from processed food and all of these sorts of things. But if you look at another primate, look at great apes, right? What do gorillas do all the time? They sit around, they eat grass. All right. They're vegetarians. They eat grass. They sit there, they eat grass. All that. They burn the majority of their calories in a day by chewing.
Oh, wow.
We're their cousins biologically. Yeah. We're supposed to do the same thing. We're supposed to have that hard granola, just our teeth, our molars are made for that. You're supposed to be burning the calories when you do that. It's also the reason, like when you get like diet sodas, but your body goes, oh, sugar, I'm about to get a shit ton of calories because this is a sweet food. Get ready for the calories. Your body starts pumping insulin, does all this shit. That's why diet soda fucks you up over time, is because your body is going, fire up the engines, the calories are coming, and then 0 calories come. You can't.
Duly noted. Got to stop doing that.
And if you don't stop doing that, you get all of the diseases and conditions that are associated with drinking diet soda in excess for years and years. Right.
And I'm pretty good about not going back into it, but that is definitely a vice that I will still dabble in once or twice a week.
They sell it to you with a 0 calorie. They've convinced a part of they convinced the ancient part of your brain, the survival part of your brain, that the calories and the sugar were the problem. Not the chemicals. And you go, oh, no calories, no sugar, no problem. No.
Well,
I've
had to stop. I had to stop a while back because my daughter, they did some sort of experiment at school with Dr. Pepper Zero and Coke Zero, which were the ones that I always go to. And she came home and was like, hey, no more. You're not drinking them anymore. I just watched what this does to whatever it was they put it on. And she's like, that is
a rat's tooth. Usually they dissolve a rat tooth in it, usually.
So since then, I've done a lot better of not going back to them, but we'll dabble every once. But that's fascinating. I had no idea that was.
There's a ton of things. I mean, look, this is one of those things where we could go like, oh, well, it's like when people say like, oh, well, they didn't know cigarettes were bad. The term coffin nail was in use in the 1890s. Everybody knew that a cigarette was a coffin nail, that it was bad for you. So don't give me that bullshit. And when we talk about things like soda, like, oh, well, people soda, all this like soda's better. All right. You understand that Coca-Cola was invented by a guy essentially as methadone. He was trying to get himself off heavier drugs. So he mixed up this concoction with cocaine in it to get off morphine, right? And so it was originally snake oil health bullshit. It was complete. It was the supplement drinks you see at 2 a.m. advertised. That was Coca-Cola when it first came out. So, who could have imagined that wouldn't end up in a good place for us health-wise? The number one beverage in the world.
Yeah, and now I was going to say now everyone drinks it, and it's just this common thing sold literally everywhere.
Yeah, well, the CEO. There's a book called "The 7 Drinks That Ruled the World," and Coca-Cola is one of them. It talks about how human history has been guided by beer, rum, gin, wine, coffee, tea, and soda and Coca-Cola. Yep. So there's a quote from the Coca-Cola CEO at the time in the book. He goes, a billion years ago, blah, blah, blah. He goes, a billion hours ago, blah, 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 blah. A billion seconds ago was all these things. He goes, a billion Cokes were sold yesterday. That's the numbers. And this book is at least 15, 20 years old. So that's the sort of numbers you're doing. Right? That's why they exist in it. And people don't understand what a billion. I mean, even mathematicians, if you really push them, will tell you like infinity is a broken concept. And like when we talk about numbers like a billion and trillion, people just don't get it. Even the ones who understand it don't really understand it because there's no billion of it. You've never actually looked at a billion anything. You've just heard the number. It is such a ridiculously large number that if I was like a billion ping pong balls, you would think like, oh, well, that'll fit in a building. No,
Yeah.
like
Flood your town.
people still think of billions the way they think of millions. And
Yeah.
that really fucks us when we end up in situations like multi-billion-dollar corporations, international corporations. It's like, yeah, you understand that like Coca-Cola could lose the American market tomorrow and it would suck and the stockholders would lose their minds and all that shit like that. But the business itself would still turn an insane profit.
Yep. Oh, for sure. They would.
Yeah. That's what billions means. It means you can lose 350 million people and laugh at it.
Well, and that's like why we talked about earlier with like living naturally with these things, these mega corporations kind of come in and make that very, very difficult because then the price of things, it's all the process stuff we were just talking about where it's right in front of your face. It's the easiest, it's the cheapest.
Buying up land. Where is it? Show me an unincorporated piece of land in America anymore. Right?
Yeah, it's like we're living the Lorax. They just keep cutting down all of nature and building apartment buildings and more of everything, basically. It's like, oh shit, eventually the oxygen's going to be a problem. Like, that's probably not great. We may not want to keep doing that. They wrote a book about that a long ass time ago.
Yeah. I know I mean, the oxygen isn't so much the issue because we need about 17% oxygen. That can go up or down a little bit. The rest of the stuff is kind of inconsequential unless it's harmful, right? It doesn't matter. It can be 70%. As long as you have enough oxygen and the other shit isn't actually harming you, you're all right. That's what's going to go. We're not going to run out of oxygen. The problem is there's going to be so much pollution that the other 83%. Yeah, if the atmosphere is 70% oxygen, we got enough. But if the other 83% is garbage, then we're fucked because we got to filter out that garbage. Like our lungs have to filter it out. That's living too close to a road or a highway. You don't think about it, but I'm like, and this is again things that we talked about before. Like, never confuse a complex problem for a simple. There's no simple answer to this. Like we want to say things like, just don't pollute the water. It's how do we maintain the world if we do that? Like cars going down the road, you don't realize your tires are deteriorating. There's exhaust coming out of the back of your car if it's internal combustion, right? But there's also literally carbon from your tires burning off every time it rolls, the friction on a microscopic level. But then you make that millions of cars, hundreds of millions of cars and vehicles across the country doing it. That's all that carbon issue. That's when you start to realize you're like, look, we don't have, it's not like, there's one big bad plant over there. If we turn that off, the pollution's good. No, the pollution comes in little drips all over from everything.
So many of them, and so many people are addicted to all of these things. It almost makes it impossible to pull back from it.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing that we are dependent on. Like you cannot have modern medicine.
I guess dependent's much better word for it.
Yeah. Well, you can't have modern medicine without plastic. Right. Now, even if we got rid of, and I think most people have become aware of this, actually, it's become a popular talking point, so people understand that if everybody individually stopped using plastic, if you didn't have that plastic water bottle, if I didn't use a plastic straw line, we would still have a massive problem because most plastics are for industrial use. Right? Now, if you were to say take the plastics out of healthcare, you would be rolling us back to the 1800s because what do we sterilize things in? Where do we get that plastic? Where do we get these barriers? What are we making gloves at night? Like all of those materials that we talk about, the pollution stuff, like, it's not the consumer level one, it's the broader industrial one. But that those industrial uses underpin where we are. Like just for like packaging and shipping. So say we're like, no more plastic bottles. We're going back. We're using glass, right? You know how much more expensive it is and how much more fuel you burn to ship a case of glass bottles versus a case? That's why we went to plastic, because it's lighter and cheaper, right? All of a sudden, you're going to be getting a glass bottle of water, but it's going to cost you $10, right? And the glass is 100% recyclable. That's good with all that. But it's like, are you going to get people to do that? No. Right.
It's so hard. Like I have 2 plastic water bottles sitting here. I usually have my cup and we have a filter, but it wasn't readily available. I was getting ready to do this and I'm like, oh, we have the case of water on there. I'm going to grab 2 real quick. But like, it's that same thing of, I used to drink them. I used to take them into the sauna with me. And then I forget who I listened to talk about it, about how basically that heat is melting the plastic into your water. And I was like, well, shit, like I didn't even think about that being a problem or like being an issue sitting in there drinking that. So then that was one of the things that made me switch to the metal cup, but I still do it. I'll still just out of ease and comfort of like, oh, my
Yeah.
cup's not clean. I don't want to do it right now. I'm just going to grab a couple bottles for
And
this
again,
one.
like you doing that, each one of us, even if every one of us stopped doing that, it wouldn't even be a dent, because that's not the problem. The problem is, going back to what I said before, we had a technology and we started using it for everything before we thought about the consequences, right? And it's like, look, it's like money-wise alone, like I said, the shipping cost alone, you're never going to go back. You're never going to get people to abandon plastic containers unless it is literally killing them fast enough that they notice it. That's the only way they're going to give it up. Right? We go back to like, grew up camping and hiking, love Nalgene bottles. So those were the greatest thing in the world for a long time, because you boiling water and anything like that. And then we found out, because we ran too far past, we're like, well, we don't think anything's coming out of that. Oh, yeah. I think it was in my 30s that they discovered, they're like, oh, yeah, these bottles are leaching chemicals into the substance, into the fluids inside them. We got to and they reformulated. And hopefully the new formulation is better. Like at that point, I did kind of what you did. I'm like, I'm back to glass and metal. Because look, I'm not going to figure out the right way to do it, and I'm not going to go test all these. I don't have testing facilities. I'm like, look, I'm just at the point where I'm like, I have to use something that I can trust. Here's something with a great history that we got away from because it was too expensive weight-wise to ship. Well, it's not too expensive weight-wise for me to carry, so I'm back to that. I will take it out of your plastic container and pour it into my metal or do whatever else. And I'm not doing it to save the environment. I'm doing it because, look, I'm just sketchy on your containers.
It makes it, my body and how I feel is so much of most of these things. And that's why I do a lot of these things that I do. But at the same time, there are times where cost effective is an issue, or whether you don't have it or you need it or whatever it is. And then you make these sacrifices and you kind of fall back into old habits, whatever, just because it's so easy or convenient. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's everything. It is.
And we do, like, societally, culturally, we try to make things convenient, right? We offer more and more convenience, and then when the convenience turns out to be a liability, it gets turned around, and it's always the people at the bottom of the totem pole that eat shit for that, right? They go on, but families on assistance, families that are struggling, right? They've got a baby, and so it's like, oh, well, you really shouldn't use disposable diapers. Motherfucker, you got 2 adults working 5 jobs in this household. Right,
you're not going to pay for them. Shut the fuck up.
Right, like they're changing. This baby is turning, especially like new babies are just fucking messy diaper machines. Like, and you're like, oh well, you guys should get a diaper service and use cloth diapers. Like, yeah, you should shut the fuck up.
It's not that simple. I wish that I could. Unfortunately,
it's telling young people like, oh, well, you guys you're caramel macchiatoing yourselves into poverty by going to Starbucks every day. Shut the fuck up. This is a complex social cultural problem, right? And also, if you created the kids, quit bitching about them, right? Every time I hear somebody go like, well, kids today, I go, do you have kids? If they say no, you're like, well, don't worry, they're not your kids. If they say, yeah, I've got kids, I say, well, then fucking make sure that yours are good and stop fucking around with everybody else's. Like, the people who
all you can control is your parenting. All you can control is what you're doing and the example you're setting for your kids. And they're such mirrors. In most cases, they're mirroring back to us what we're doing.
Well, that's the other one. It's like somebody's like, oh, kids today are assholes. I'm like, yeah, I can tell you where they learned it from. You're a parent, aren't you? I mean, I'm kind of vocally anti-parent. I have that segment, the whole thing. But when it comes to kids, I do. Look, I take adults or child. Like, once you exist, once you're here in the world, we have a shared responsibility among each other to look out for one another. I'm like, that's just the way it is. And some of you aren't pulling your weight, and then your kids see you not pulling your weight. They don't pull their weight. Like, assholes raise assholes.
Absolutely. Whenever I was 300 pounds at my most negative, at my worst, doing all the shit that I did not want to do, I could see all these habits in my kids. I still see them at times, these habits that I've broken, where I'm like watching them repeat what I used to do. And it's like, oh, they absorb so much of this shit. I've got to do better for myself.
Whether they think you see it or not, because kids with smoking, I got a friend of mine to quit smoking this way because he was only out on the road. When he was out on the road touring and performing with us, he after a couple of days, I'd see him with a cigarette. I'm like, were you smoking again? He goes, I only smoke out here on the road. I go, why? So your kids don't see it? Because your kids are going to see it and they're going to smoke too? He goes, yeah. I go, look, statistics don't lie, and they don't care whether or not your kid sees you smoke. If you smoke, whether or not you ever think you smoked in front of your kid or not, your kid has a higher chance of smoking. You want to keep the
There's
cigarette out of their mouth? You want to keep the vape out of their mouth? Keep it out of yours.
there's definitely something with healing yourself, healing your generational things that pop up in your life and not passing them down to your kids, not avoiding them, and just basically handling your shit and pivoting a different direction, because then it gives you the knowledge when these things happen with your kids. You can go, oh, hey, I did this. This is where I fucked up. Don't do it this way. Yeah. But they're going to make their own mistakes. But then my hope is that if I'm telling them my failures and I'm being open and honest and vulnerable with them, then they can create their own new failures, but they're going to get better and better. And then they can teach their kids, hey, here's where I fucked up. And then their kids can get better. And then hopefully that theory works.
The core of it, what you just said, is like, you want to know how to be a good parent? Don't pass on your problems.
Yeah, fix your shit. And it's hard.
Everybody's always going to have problems. Your kids are going to have problems. Sorry to break it to you if that's new for a parent that's hearing this. Or whatever. Like, look, your kids are going to have problems. Your kids are going to struggle, and you got to fucking let them sometimes. Yeah. But what you don't have to do is make them struggle because of you. You should be who they come to when they struggle, right? That's the thing that I think is kind of the most fucked up child parent. And I consider myself very lucky, because that's what my parents were to me. Every time I failed, every time I fell down, every time I fucked up, every time I was struggling or having difficulty, I could go to them for help with whatever it was, because they weren't the cause of it. They weren't passing on a generational problem. They were very specifically being like, look, your life's going to suck in the way that your life sucks. Everybody gets their own suck. When it's sucking, come to us. We're going to be like, hey, you know what? Ours suck too, but in a different way, and we're all going to commiserate. If we can help each other, we're going to help each other, whatever it is. But yeah, don't pass on your problems. If every parent could just do that, how much fucking better would it be?
Oh, 100%. I think that's like the perfect way to end this too. Like that was like the perfect little ending to this. Just it ties into the pain too of let them face the pain. They're going to fail. They're going to face
everybody
pain.
Have their own pain.
Yeah. Face it, go after it, figure it out. There's a lesson in literally everything. Every time you go through a painful moment, whether you see it or not in the moment, there's going to be something on the backside that's going to be temporary. It's not going to stick around forever. Your life's not going to suck like this forever, but you have to take the steps to get out of it.
Also, it might not be a major revelation. You'll always get something. Now, it might not be earth-shaking. Like what you might get is, boy, that was dumb. I won't do that again. Like sometimes that's all you get. Sometimes that's all you get, but that's something.
But sometimes it's all you need. Sometimes you just need that slap upside the fucking head that goes, hey, dummy, maybe we don't do that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. That's a lesson you got to learn. Everybody has to touch the stove once, right? If you touch it twice, you're an idiot. But if somebody says, hey, that's hot, and you go, is it? If you don't like, ow, you're right. That's fucking hot. I will never do that again. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you touch it twice, you're an idiot. But you got to touch it once.
For sure. That's how you learn. It's how you fail. You touch that bitch. You're like, oh, hey, okay. Yep. We're not going to do that again. That was not a fun experience.
Well, I just remembered growing up in dairy farm country in upstate New York, and my cousins would come to visit, and we go out, just walking through the woods and the fields, the electric fence. Right. And it's so the older kid always has to get the younger kid to touch the electric fence. Right. And then you'll touch it yourself, and you'll give yourself a tiny shock to be like, yeah, see it. Sure. And you're like, but it's okay if you just grab onto it. If you grab it. Right. And it's like, there were the kids that you played that prank on them once. Mm-hmm. And after that, they're always like, I'm on you. I know about the world now. And then there were those kids that grabbed onto it every time. And you're like, you're a little special.
Yep. There is something about you that you did not learn this lesson. You're going to have a rough time in life.
Things aren't boding well for you.
Well, you have been so much fun. I am so happy I got to meet you. This has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. Please promote where anybody can follow along with you on social media or anywhere else.
Hey, just go to thelizardman.com. You got to put the in front of it. Thelizardman.com, and you will see where I'm going to be, what I'll be doing, and when I'll be doing it.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. You were awesome. It was so fun meeting you.
Thanks, man. It's fun to meet you too. And again, congratulations on the journey, dude. Way to go. Keep it up.
Thank you. And same to you. It's so fun getting to hear about it and see everything that you've done with it. So I appreciate it. And thank you so much.
All right.
Have a great rest of your day. See ya.
You too, man.